Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 24th of September 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit. With today's gaming news and comments, coming up in the show, Valve announces the Steam OS, Creative Assembly is somewhat obsessed with Metacritic scores, and we will round up this week's new releases. All this in the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. As part of 3 days of announcements, Valve has unveiled the Steam OS, one of 3 projects it is looking to show you in the next couple of days. The operating system appears to be based on Linux, which would certainly make a lot of sense considering Valve's recent focus on that particular operating system, and it is designed to be used in the living room. Its features include the ability to stream games from your desktop PC to a Steam OS machine, which could in theory be anything, including an official Valve Steam box. It will also provide the standard features such as access to media services like Netflix and Pandora, and is promising significant performance increases in graphical processing. They've also stated that they are currently working on reducing input latency and improving audio performance, which would appear to reference the fact that certain things do not run so well in a Linux environment. They have also described the operating system as open, meaning that it is possible to modify it. It is speculated that the OS may be fully open source, which would certainly make sense if it is basically a custom Linux distro. Perhaps most interestingly, they're also claiming that AAA titles will be coming natively to Steam OS in 2014. And of course, the streaming capabilities will allow you to play games which do not run natively on Steam OS via your home network using a base PC to do so. Alright, interesting. So, it's not a big surprise. We've known that Valve has been working with Linux for quite some time. It was only a matter of time before something along those lines was announced, and it also makes sense that the announcement coming in the future would be for a Steam box, and indeed by the time this show comes out, it's possible that may have already been shown to you. What interests me here is the focus. They appear to be focusing on the living room once again, and this is something that they have been trying to tackle. The introduction of Big Picture was a step in that particular direction. They want to be able to give the Steam experience to people who are using a gaming piece of hardware, whatever that might be, in their living room. They are battling for control of it, which is something that a lot of companies are currently doing. Microsoft has definitely entered the fray with the Xbox One, considering the number of television functions that particular console happens to have. Apple's been in there for a while. Google has also jumped in there with their Chromecast HDMI streaming plugin, and then you've got all sorts of smartphone and tablet providers that are trying to interface with the living room device. Yeah, they are battling over that. It certainly makes sense when you think about it. If you become the dominant media device in a living room, then you can also then exploit the fact that you happen to have a store hooked in with it. So if Apple becomes the dominant device, then iTunes will become the place to buy and rent movies and television series in the living room. Yeah, it's a very, very big market that they're going after. There's a lot of competition there already. Netflix is dominant. There's also Hulu and, of course, Amazon Instant Video, and there are smaller services like Crackle. There's all sorts of things going on in that particular space. So it does make sense that Valve will want to stick its foot in there. What doesn't make a huge amount of sense is whether or not this OS will also be useful for a desktop PC. Because, frankly, I don't really care about the ability to play stuff on my big TV, because that would involve using a controller, which for most games I wouldn't really want to do. I, for the most part, game at my desk, as do a lot of PC gamers. However, we are most likely going to be attracted by the notion that this OS offers significant performance increases. Honestly, Linux could become the gaming OS. There's nothing really stopping it from doing that aside from the obvious software support as well as driver issues with various pieces of hardware. And on a PC, you can dual boot very easily, so it's not like that would be too much of a concern. I could very easily dual boot SteamOS, and I probably will, just for the sake of it. Stick it on an SSD, it'll probably load up in a couple of seconds. You can switch between them quite easily, and even though I won't be able to use most of my production applications on it, I don't need to. As long as I can capture on Linux, which you can very easily, there are plenty of methods of doing so, then I could do my gaming on Linux, and then I could do my editing on Windows. and that would be absolutely fine for me, but it comes down to the software support. I am very happy that there is going to be an alternative to Windows when it comes to gaming on a PC, because currently there really isn't. I would not even consider switching to Linux at this point, but I would certainly consider dual booting SteamOS if it happened to have the requisite support from the game developers themselves. I currently don't foresee a scenario where I would end up using a Steam box with SteamOS or whatever to stream games from my main PC. I find the idea unattractive. The reason I play on a PC is for performance. You don't get that performance via streaming. You can't. You get either lower resolution, lower frame rate, or you simply get more artifacting and longer response times. Not only that, but if you're on the couch, you're not going to be using a keyboard and mouse most likely. So unless this streaming capability is so good that it replicates the experience that I get on my main PC, I don't see the reason to do that. You know, if I wanted to play console quality games, I'd play them on a console. It is easier, there's no real question about that. What I am kind of happy with is the idea that you'll have an operating system that is very specifically designed to pull content from your PC, because currently, pulling content from a PC is a bit of a pain in the ass. I have a smart TV that can do that, but it took a lot of setting up and it's a little bit flaky when it does it. Even pulling through other devices can be a bit of a pain. If this is very specifically designed to do that with bare minimum interference and can set itself up and is very reliable, then I guess that could be quite handy. But my hope with this is that they do also make it worthwhile to use on a desktop. If you're offering performance increases, then frankly, I want to be able to use those. I want to be able to take advantage of performance increases. I want 120 FPS gaming. I do. I've got 120 Hz monitors. I want to push it that far. But for the most part, games aren't even optimized for that. And even with 2 Titans and a very, very expensive processor, you still can't get that on a lot of games, which is very, very silly, I tend to find. It seems like I've got the hardware for it, but the games just aren't optimized. And I wonder if a better operating system would help. I don't even know if it would, honestly. If those games simply aren't optimized for that kind of high performance, then why bother? It's not like you wouldn't be able to use SteamOS on a desktop machine. The question is, would it be worthwhile? Would there be any reason? I mean, if the whole thing was just designed around Steam Big Picture, you can still use Big Picture with a mouse and keyboard. It takes a little longer. I've used it before, and it's like, well, what's the point? It's much, much faster using the regular Steam, but it's not like you can't use it. Hell, if even a fraction of games run significantly better on SteamOS versus what they do on Windows, that's reason enough to dual boot the damn thing, as far as I'm concerned. So that is an interesting announcement. We'll see where it goes. The second announcement from Valve is scheduled to come along later in the week. In a recent feature with Gama Sutra, the head of Creative Assembly, Tim Heaton, has described that his team shoots for 90% on Metacritic and takes fairly brutal approaches in order to try and achieve that. He described that the company would cut features that were 90% complete if their so-called Metacritic analysis did not lead them to the conclusion that that feature would actually result in a higher score. He also described how this affects morale, but claimed that delivering a 90% game and selling 2 million copies is the thing that makes the team prouder than anything. That's the bottom line, and people do come to understand that. I would suggest reading the full article, certainly. This is one of the worst things I've ever read, I'm gonna be honest. Not Gama Sutra's fault, certainly. It's Creative Assembly's fault. It is the most disgusting attitude I have ever seen. There's certainly a very heady irony, I think, in the name of the studio, Creative Assembly, when it seems like, according to this guy, that they are willing to design a game by the numbers. They are willing to tick boxes. And that's something that we have seen repeatedly in the past few years be a universal negative when it comes to creating good video games. If you focus test and if you focus group too much, and you build your game around that, then you will end up with a lousy game, as opposed to a game whereby the designers were actually able to fulfill their vision. That's when the truly great games come out. And evidently, this approach has not done them any favors this time around. We talk about them targeting 90%. Well, it certainly seemed to work pretty well with Empire Total War. This is the annoying thing, right? It's not just Creative Assembly that are responsible for this attitude. I find their attitude disgusting, but the fact that Empire Total War managed a 90% on Metacritic is absolutely insane. There was no way in a million years that you could possibly claim that that game was worthy of that score. And usually, I don't even care about scores, right? I think scores should be destroyed. And I feel that Metacritic needs to be expunged from the industry because it is universally damaging across the board. But here's the thing, right? There is no way you should be rating that game as highly as you did because it was broken on release and there were plenty of problems. They had to make Napoleon as an apology for that game, and Napoleon rated worse, even though Napoleon's actually a better game across the board objectively in terms of how well it works. And for God's sake, in Empire, you could play England and you could never die because the AI was incapable of invading you over water. It was broken on release. And yet, somehow, they managed to trick reviewers into believing otherwise. This is what happens when you target Metacritic ratings. You build your game in such a way that the first, say, 20-hour experience is incredible. It's amazing. And you don't notice the cracks until you play more and more and more of it. Because obviously, a reviewer is not likely to spend 100 hours with Total War. They can't afford the time. They'll maybe play 20 hours of Total War, and if they don't notice the problems in that respect, then hey, look at this amazing rating. God, usually I ignore the ratings from users here, but honestly, the ratings from users are accurate. A 6.8 for once is actually accurate. That is what I would describe Empire, certainly at its launch state, as, and I don't believe it's ever been truly fixed. And then, of course, along comes Rome 2, one of their worst scoring Total War games of all time. It scored the same as the expansion pack Total War Alexander, which was not that great for the original Rome. There is actually nothing that has scored lower than that aside from Total War Battle Shogun, which doesn't count. Yeah, that was a mobile game. I really hope that that's the wake-up call that Creative Assembly needs. It also should be a wake-up call to everybody else. Stop pre-ordering Creative Assembly games. They are broken on release almost 100% of the time. Shogun 2 was good. It had some problems, but it was good. But for the most part, when you release a Total War game, it's probably gonna have a lot of issues. And it doesn't seem like they fixed that at all. Think about that for your Metacritic score. Maybe if your game is good, and maybe if your game works the way it's supposed to, then it will end up with a high Metacritic score. Hey, what a great idea that would be. Instead of saying, you know what, we think this feature would target these reviewers here. Why are you making a game for reviewers? You want to explain that to me? Build your game for the people that like your games. It is the job of a reviewer to review video games. They probably won't even play your game after they finished with it. Yeah? You're aiming at them? Why are you doing that? As someone that's been described as a reviewer multiple times, even though I insist that I'm not, if someone built a game aimed at me, then quite frankly, I would slap them around the head. I can only buy one copy. Chances are I'm getting it free anyway. People already don't trust reviewers all that much. The games industry is already considered a joke when it comes to the journalistic side of things, and there are plenty of reasons to justify that opinion. Why on earth would you put the fate of the game in the hands of reviewers? And it's kind of ridiculous with a Total War game as well. It's absolutely insane. It's not like a Total War game isn't going to sell. There is a marketing juggernaut behind those games, and that game was pre-ordered to the max. I mean, it's still in the top 5. Yesterday, I'm pretty sure I saw it at number 2 under State of Decay. It is continually selling, and it has nothing to do with the Metacritic score. If anything, the fact that Rome has sold as much as it has should be proof positive that Metacritic doesn't bloody matter. If Rome 2 outsells Shogun 2, can we then go to Creative Assembly and say, oh, look at how your 90% Metacritic rating didn't do a damn thing for you? Here's what you sold your game on. You sold your game on a promise to its fan base. A long-standing fan base in a franchise that has been around for over a decade. And what did you do? You burned your fan base. You released a game that clearly wasn't ready. If you need any evidence of that, go watch Angry Joe's 40-minute video on how broken Rome 2 actually is. You're having to patch it on a weekly basis just to get it to an acceptable level. So tell me again how important Metacritic is, and tell me again how it's important to tick boxes and design features for good reviewing as opposed to designing a good game that your fans will actually enjoy. You want to sell copies of a game? You do it that way. Oh, God, what a disgustingly corporate attitude that is. The sooner scores and Metacritic die, the better, seriously. I would love to see those who give scores that feed into Metacritic get rid of them entirely. Just toss it away completely. Get rid of that system It doesn't work. You're trying to quantify a complex, subjective opinion into a number. A relative number that each site does in a different way. It is absurd. It is a stupid idea. You need to quit it right now. The sooner Metacritic dies in this industry, the better off we'll all be. And finally, let's see what's coming out this week. Well, the Grand Theft Auto 5 explosion is, well, still going on, but there are other titles coming out this week, so we can have a look at those. We'll start with Armored Core 5 Verdict Day, coming to PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, the long-running From Software series. This game's actually an expansion pack to Armored Core 5, by the way. It's got more maps, more single-player missions, more parts. So if that's what you're looking for, then by all means. Scribblenauts Unmasked, a DC Comics adventure, coming to PC, Wii U, and 3DS on September the 24th. That, I believe, is supposed to be worldwide, which is lovely, by the way, because the original game did have some localization issues. It didn't come out for ages. If you own Scribblenauts Unlimited on Steam, you get a 25% discount in combination with the 10% launch week discount, which is pretty good, I've got to say. The game itself is a nice little advancement on Scribblenauts Unlimited, simply in the way that they generate the levels. They randomly generate the levels, so there's essentially infinite puzzles available, which sounds absolutely fantastic, and of course it has the entire roster. I do mean the entire DC Comics roster in there, including like 17 variations of Batman. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in that game. FIFA 14 coming out to PC, PlayStation Vita, PS3, and Xbox 360 on September the 24th. Not a lot needs to be said about that one. Alien Rage coming out on the 24th of September as well, that being PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox. I do have that game. I will hopefully have a video up in the next couple of days. My initial thoughts on it are that it is somewhat generic, to say the least, but it's a fairly entertaining romp. However, there doesn't appear to be customizable FOV, so it will be a 1 out of 10. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, coming to DS and 3DS. Right, yeah, okay. And, unbelievably, Pro Evolution Soccer 2014, coming out on the same day as FIFA on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This is just getting silly. This is Pepsi versus Coke all over again. Hakuki, Memories of the Shin Senegumi, limited edition and regular, coming to 3DS as well. That is a visual novel game, by the way, by a company called Otomati. And I have honestly not heard of a single game on their list that includes Death Connection, Desert Kingdom Portable, DC Girls Symphony, and Diabolic Lovers. I don't even know. I'm not even going to pretend to. What else is coming out, folks? We do have the Lone Survivor Director's Cut coming to PlayStation 3. Lone Survivor being a rather amusing 2D survival horror game. I did a video of that a while ago. It was kind of terrifying. Tokobot Plus Mysteries of the Karakuri is a PlayStation 2 classic that is coming to PlayStation 3 on September the 24th, along with Mark of Kree, which is actually considered to be a cult classic by a lot of people. It's pretty damn difficult. Pac-Man Championship Edition DX Plus is coming to PC. This is actually a good thing on September the 25th. I know, you're thinking, Pac-Man, that's insane. No, seriously, you might want to look at this. It's actually quite fantastic. Day 1, Gary's Incident, coming to PC on September the 25th. I have no idea what to make of that one whatsoever. I am intrigued by it, I've got to say. It's supposedly a survival game. It's by a company called Wild Game Studios, who have put out precisely nothing of note. They did a Dungeon Gate in November of last year. That was it. I have no idea what to expect from that. It's a survival FPS. Shadow Warrior, speaking of FPS, yes indeed, this one coming from Flying Wild Hog, 26th of September on PC. It is fantastic. Absolutely love this game, and I would strongly recommend that you look into it. I did a video a little while ago. I'll probably do another one because I did sort of a press build that wasn't quite complete, but it is absolutely awesome. Trust me, you do want some wang. I would strongly suggest that you look into it. Deadfall Adventures, September the 27th on PC. I played a little bit of this one, and I was not exactly impressed, I've got to say. It's supposedly inspired by classic action movies like Indiana Jones. It was not that great, I am afraid. Not from what I saw anyway, so that one's probably going to be a pass, I think. And then we have Rise of Venice coming from Calypso. which is developed by Gaming Minds. Those were the fellows that brought you the recent Patrician and Port Royale games. That is not a particularly good pedigree, I gotta say. Sorry, because Patrician 4 and Port Royale 3 were not that great. They were not as good as their prequels, so don't know about this one. I do have code for it. I'm under embargo, though, so I can't talk about it yet, but I will look into it over the coming days. All right, folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch. Before I go, I'd like to give you an OC Remix track for the road. A lot of the stuff we play from OC Remix is quite old. It's a site that's been around for a decade now. However, this is brand new, actually. It only came out a few days ago, and it is remixed by Kate the Great 19, and it is a track from Dark Cloud, which was an excellent PlayStation 2 RPG, and the song originally is the Village Festival. The particular feature of this track, as far as I'm concerned, is that it doesn't have vocals per se. It uses the voice as an instrument, and it is a very, very good track and something a little bit unusual compared to what we often play on this show. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and yes, the contest for the copies of Torchlight 2 has now closed. We will be looking through the comments and entries and starting to issue codes via YouTube PM over the next couple of days. That means do not set your YouTube PMs to private, otherwise we will not be able to send you that message. Thanks a lot, folks. I'll see you next time.